Good morning, sir.
Morning. Yesterday, I came to know how you people must feel in my class. Though, having said that, uh, I was listening to people till 6:30 in the evening, starting at around 10:40. And for some strange reason, most of these people were making presentations on Plato. And I was beginning to wonder if I know Plato at all. All kinds of things were being said about Plato, which I have a feeling are which I have a feeling are made up. So anyway, let's it says, yeah. Yeah. So how come I'm hearing my echo? Okay, right. Uh, Yesterday, since I had to run and get something done, I left out one not so important detail, but you should know this. Um, Plato is not this person's given name. When we say given name, he was not named Plato. His given name is actually this. Aristocles. Okay, and he was called, yeah, Shiva Mogalipaka. You've raised your hand. Hmm? Well, are you all able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Uh, Aristocles was his given name, but he got the name Plato because of his being broad shouldered. Apparently, he was an imposing man. Uh, so, the Greek word, which is the root for Plato, is plati, I think. And though his name was Aristocles, uh, he had he was given this particular name, Plato. And while I'm doing this, let me also talk about the academy, which people will tell you is the name of the school that Plato started. Okay. There is one thing that you need to understand here. Academy is not the name of the school that Plato started. The whole idea of academy is that an academy in itself is a school. So it basically means school. So he started a school. It's not like he gave it a name like, Usmania or Nizam College. No, it wasn't like that. Okay, academy itself means a place where education is imparted. Okay, so it's not a proper noun. It's not a proper noun in the sense that he didn't decide to call it the academy. So, having said that, I was yesterday trying to tell you one of the points. Can some, what's Akshay? I stopped in a hurry. Can you remind me where we were?
Allegory of caves.
We finished that, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I think I was basically trying to tell you the movement from perfection to imperfection.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were discussing the various influences that existed on Plato. Um, One of the influences, which is Pythagoras, I told you yesterday this point was covered, where I told you that uh, Plato took the idea of souls and the whole idea of rebirth, that life after death. Okay, all those things came from the influence of Pythagoras. Okay, and I also said that he was somebody uh, who, when he talked about the realm of forms, when he said the realm of forms, he was again talking about Pythagoras, because forms are nothing but um, souls. He calls it the realm of forms, which actually means the realm of the souls. And the other inspiration that he took from uh, Pythagoras is the idea that knowledge is not gained in this world, but it is gained in the realm of forms. Now, the influence of Parmenides is that the lack of movement or change when something is perfect. Okay, this is what he took from um Parmenides, and that is the reason why he will say knowledge is not real when it takes into consideration the idea that You know, uh, the idea that knowledge is, I mean, that the idea that it is about things or objects which are in the empirical world. This for him is not true knowledge, because the empirical world is imperfect, it is changing, and therefore you'll never have true knowledge if you concentrate on it. So true knowledge for him is that which is in the in the, you can call it a form of an idea, and therefore he said all real knowledge is ideal. Ideal as in derived from the idea. Okay, knowledge is ideal, and we are all born with knowledge. We are not born with an empty head. That's what he said. I'm not going to go into the explanation of that. Then we'll stay here only. So for him, the binary juxtaposition of the real versus the ideal is not a valid juxtaposition. That may be so in the case of international relations, but in philosophical terms, he has given primacy to ideas as the real source of knowledge. So for him, the ideal is the real. Okay, somewhere close to this form of thought you will find in Hegel in the modern period in the 19th century. And what Hegel basically argues is that the real is the rational and the rational is the real. And that is the reason why Hegel is considered to be a modern idealist. Now, idealism in the philosophical sense is not the commonsensical idealism, which is, some lofty form of thinking where, uh, you know, where you want to have something but you can't have it. So let me just give you one example. Uh, there is a song called Imagine that was written by John Lennon, who once belonged to the Beatles. And in this song, he is basically talking about what takes away the humanity that should be inside of us. Okay? He says it takes away the humanity that should be inside of us. So he wrote a song which goes, imagine there's no heaven, imagine there's no hell, imagine there is no possessions, so all these things which are important to us, he says, imagine that none of them exist. And the song ends with, imagine that all the people living as one. Okay, that is what he talks about. So that can be a form of, that is what we equate with idealism that is unattainable. And opposite of this is, uh, the opposite of this is what we find in international relations, which says that war is inevitable, national interests exist. Okay, so all these different kinds of interpretations are commonsensical. Okay, they are not to be taken as philosophical or social scientific. Okay, if you take that which is the social scientific conception of the ideal is that which is derived out of the ideas of not the ideas. I'm sorry, my English is going to dogs. Uh, what is derived out of ideas as knowledge is the real knowledge. So I was giving you an example. I'm not going to give you the example again. I mean, I'll just talk about this, but I will not explain it. I'll make a mention of it. Allegory of the cave that Plato talks about. And if you look at the allegory of the cave, you see that he has posited two things. One, which is the real, and two, which is the actual. Okay, the real and the actual. All right, the world of things or objects consists of those that are actual, and therefore any knowledge from this world is apocryphal. Okay, apocryphal as in dubious and even not very, not reliable. Okay, that's what it means. Now, for Plato, knowledge has to be absolutely reliable. So, he would talk about apodictic knowledge being that which is based in the world of ideas that are contained in minds of people. This apodictic basically means irrefutable, absolutely correct. Okay, that's what it means. And therefore, he says one should not go towards the world of objects. I told you, if you go towards the world of objects, then you have a tendency to confuse distortions of things. In the allegory of the cave, he says people see shadows of objects and think those objects are real. Those shadows are real. Shadows are not real. They are only shadows of the object that is outside of the cave, and they've never been out of the cave. And therefore, he says, depending on the angle of sunlight, a tree can actually look longer than it is, or it can look shorter than it is. So these are illusions, and this is the actual. Okay, this is illusory. So the world of actuals is illusory and imperfect, and hence the necessity for movement. Okay, so what we see here is the obvious influence of Parmenides, but he's not stopping with Parmenides. Okay, I told you that the word Maya in Sanskrit, which we understand as something, an illusion, as something which is not there, but we think is there, okay, or magic, those are not the meanings. The correct meaning is Maya is the world of actuals. And if you should know what the actual is, then you should understand the concept of an illusion. An illusion is not something that doesn't exist, but it is a distortion of what is and takes you away from the true path of knowledge. So actually there is one story which I'll just tell it to you. I thought I won't, but I'm not going to tell you the story in detail. Okay, those of you who are familiar with mythology of Sanatana Dharma, you will know that there is the Deva Rishi, Narada. Narada once is supposed to have asked Vishnu, I have never really understood this whole idea of Maya and Mithya, Mithya, Mithya. Okay, and he said, can you explain this to me? Can you please explain what this means to me? Is what Narada asked Vishnu. Now, Vishnu said, I cannot explain it to you. I cannot explain it to you because if I try to explain it in words, you won't understand. So Narada then says, how do I understand it then? He says you have to experience it. and you can experience it only if you're a human being. Okay, I'm telling you this story because you will find traces of this in Hegel later. Okay, and so Vishnu said, would you like to be born as a human being? Would you like to understand what Maya is? So Narada says yes. So Narada is born as a human being and he's pursuing various different things. He's trying to control things. Okay, we like to have things in our control. Not so much in India, because there is still some spiritual basis to the entire civilization. But it is definitely the case in the West. But even in India, we would want things to be under control. You know, it's not like people will say, we don't want to have things under our control. So Narada is born, he gets married, he's, tied up to this material world. Material world is world of objects again. World consisting of matter. Okay. So he is tied up with this and he thinks that knowing about all these things and pursuit of these things, various comforts, trying to make your future secure, he begins doing all these things. And he thinks that this is what life is all about. Making sure that you're in control. So yesterday I sat in interviews for one whole day. So what do? I double mask. I wear a face shield. I carry gallons of hand sanitizer. And even if I don't touch anything, I still keep sanitizing my hands. And somehow we believe that this is the way life is. And then it dawns on Narada that he's a mortal. And whatever he might be experiencing, those experiences have nothing to do with what the universal being is. Vishnu is the universal spirit, the spirits that permeates the universe. The idea that the universe itself is life, pantheism, he doesn't understand this. So Vishnu calls him back and says, have you seen what this is? He says, yeah. So what did you learn? So Narada says, I learned that we pursue all the wrong things, all the things which are not unreal, but actual, and therefore they are illusory. If you think buying a sofa will give you comfort, will it? No. If you have a bed, will you get sleep? No. You will get sleep if you're tired or if your mind is at rest, it is peaceful, then you'll sleep. You will sleep anywhere. You will sleep on the floor. You don't need a bed. But if your mind is preoccupied with thoughts of, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? What is going to happen to my future. If these kind of things are looked at or are being thought about continuously, then that is the world of actuals. Okay, that becomes the world of the actuals. So when that becomes the world of the actuals, then you're pursuing things which actually do not have consequences for life. So that is Maya. And Mithya is a fallout of Maya, where in this mad pursuit of things, in this mad pursuit of trying to have our life in our own control, in doing all this, we are forgetting what life is and moving towards a certain sort of meaningless nothingness. Okay, it's like a, I mean, what is this? Okay, it's nothing, but we think it is something. So that is what is actuals, and that is the same thing which is talked about even by Plato. Plato also talks about actuals as being illusory. Illusory as not there not being there, but that which is deceptive. Okay, that which is illusory is that which is deceptive, and that which basically uh, takes you away from the pursuit of real knowledge. So, real knowledge for him is that which is derived out of ideas, and therefore, so the binary opposition doesn't exist. Now, let's introduce another element, time. The Greeks called it chronos. Okay, even today we use this word. You say chronologically depict things, which means you will say, today how many classes did you have? We had 5 classes. From 9 to 10:40 there was this fat man who was talking all rubbish, and after that somebody else came and said wonderful things, and somebody else came after that. So that is a chronological sequence where you're following a timeline. Now the Greeks had two concepts of time. Okay, one concept of time is a compartmentalization. Time as time is compartmentalized. So what is time as compartmentalized? Here we say past. Oh my God, I'm typing horribly. Past, present, future. Past, present, future. This is what is one way of looking at it. So we always say, let's put the past behind us. When we uh, are talking about things that happened in the past, things that you don't want to remember, we'll say put it in the past. Okay. And then you have the idea of the present. You take a philosopher like Jiddu Krishnamurti, who says the way to happiness is living life on a daily basis. So, what is living life on a daily basis? It is like, don't think of yesterday, don't think of what might be, what was yesterday, don't think of what might be tomorrow. Live in the present, live today. Just bother yourself about today. Don't go into the back, don't project into the future. No retrojection, no projection. Okay, so that is the compartmentalized form of time. And most people subscribe to this. Okay, because when we talk about time, history, we talk about it chronologically. Okay, which essentially means that we are following a principle where history is the documentation of things that happened in a particular time period. Okay. Mr. Pratap Singh, is this your first class? Pratap Singh? Mr. Pratap Singh has.
Yes, sir.
Is this your first class?
Oh, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Uh, who knows the meaning of this? Anachronism? Who knows the meaning of this? Anyone? Nobody?
I think the one which is not in the present.
Not in the present? Not really, ma'am. Anachronism is breaking the time sequence. Is breaking the time sequence. Okay, it essentially means that you, if I say, for example, not if I say, for example, let me tell you narrate a true instance. when I was in TISS, much against my cautioning, somebody was recruited to teach BA. Okay, and there was this lady whose interview was completely bogus, but somehow it she kind of managed to get in because the subject experts were from the university that she came from. So we didn't have a choice. She was chosen. And she had, I believe, she went to the first class. That was the class that I was teaching before, to her first class. And she said, imagine a dialogue between Plato, I'm not making this up, it is Plato that she talked about. Imagine a dialogue between Plato and Gandhi. Imagine a conversation between the two of them. And tell me, how will this conversation be? What would be the content of the conversation? Now, this was a class that I had taught, and so I'm very rigorous about definitions. And I do not tolerate tourism like this, academic tourism. So the students were used to my teaching and they said, how can we imagine a conversation between a 5th century uh, BCE philosopher and a 19th and 20th century CE political practitioner? And why should we? What is the purpose of this? So they refused to answer her. They went straight to the head of the institution here and said, this is all bunkum. And it all fell on me. That is a different story altogether. But what she was asking people to do was to create an anachronism. Gandhi, how can Gandhi talk to Plato? They are not in the same century. They are not anywhere near each other time-wise, chronologically. Their realities are completely different. Okay, their realities are completely different. So how can you say, imagine a conversation and tell me what it is? Suppose I say, Gandhi tells Plato, Plato, you're an idiot. And in reply to that, Plato says Gandhi is a fool. What would your response what would your response be to something like that? Can you say that that is wrong? When you're talking about this imaginary situation, this is what my imagination tells me. That Gandhi will call Plato an idiot and Plato will call Gandhi a fool. Okay? How can you even condone this? So that is an anachronism, as we understand mostly. But there is yet another principle of time, which is quite different from this. Okay, it's quite different from this. That is, time is a continuum. Oh my God. Okay. Time is a continuum. Anybody understands what a continuum is?
There is no end.
There's no end.
Yes, sir.
Is there a beginning?
No, sir.
Okay. If you're saying time is a continuum, it does not mean that it has no end. That is infinity. Time is infinite. Okay. That would qualify to be called, infinity would be called no end. When you say time is a continuum, what happened to my tools? What did I did? Okay. If you say time is a continuum, time is a continuous line. It's a continuous line. If you look at what I've put here, time as compartmentalized, past slash present slash future. Okay. So this will happen in our everyday course of events. So let me give you an example of how time is to be treated as a continuum. And this actually came from one of the logical positivists whose name is Otto Neurath. Okay, logical positivism is a 20th century movement. It is also called the Vienna Circle. Okay, it's also called the Vienna Circle. But this is, I'm using how Neurath wanted certain knowledge, certain, not as in certain kind, but indisputable knowledge. While doing that, he gives us a perfect understanding of what a time continuum is. Okay, what does he do? He says, when we speak, we should not speak in the first person. Okay, we should not speak in the first person. We should speak in the third person. So let's put it this way. If I speak in the first person, what will I say? I'll say, I took a class on 29th of, or I'll simply probably say today. I took a class today for the MA first years. They are generous people. They put up with my rubbish without complaining. And they keep coming back to class. Not all of them, but a few of them. They do come to class. So it's nice. And I took a class from 9 to 10:40 today. This form of speech, according to Neurath, doesn't indicate a time continuum. It does not indicate a time continuum. It does not provide, it does not, what's the word? Gone out of my head. It doesn't present us with an opportunity to make an indisputable and verifiable presentation of what I did. So if I have to speak, then I will say, if I have to tell somebody that I took a class today, I'll say, this is how it will go. Oh, Jesus, you'll be dead if that is. Suppose I put it this way. Can you compartmentalize it? Anyone? Yes, Akshay.
I'm not getting your point, sir.
Point is very simple. If you want to look at this, is this something which is past, present, future? Does it contain all those in it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the past?
Yesterday.
But I'm not talking about that.
It seems like it is already done, no, sir. It
It
has already
is,
happened.
no, consider it as happened. Consider it as happened.
Mhm.
I'm not asking you to say that this is in this moment. This can be looked at on any day. Okay, I made this statement, I record this statement and put it. So what does this show?
But sir,
It is not showing present, future, or past, sir. Just it is.
Hmm. Okay. I think Padma was saying something.
Sir, I said the word engaged is there, no, which is telling that it is being done. So it can be considered as past.
Word engaged is? I didn't get that.
Telling that the event has already happened. So it
That's
is
okay.
considered as
So,
past.
no, that's okay. Engaged. Why is that? See, are you able to break this whole thing up into time sequencing?
Yes, sir.
Hmm? How
Yes,
are you
sir.
able to break it into time sequencing?
By the date,
Yeah,
day,
but
month,
okay,
year.
you're doing it by the date, the month, and all that. So what? So what? Are you reporting this chronologically? Is there a chronological principle involved here?
Maybe no, because we are not having the previous and the next event. So this might not be chronological.
Correct. That's the
Yeah,
point I wanted.
yeah.
Thank you. Correct. That's precisely the point I wanted. It is not chronological because it doesn't say anything about what should we say, before
The before and after
and the
event.
after. Doesn't say anything about it. It only says this. So that is a time continuum. Okay. A time continuum is where you treat time as an ongoing thing and you don't believe that you can break it up into compartments. So there was a problem when I'll talk to you about positivism later. In positivism, one of the main principles is verification. If it is reported in the first person, it is difficult to verify. If it is reported like this, then it is easy to verify and it will be a part of a time continuum. Okay. You can make it even more of a better example. Now, how does this look?
This looks like a series. It is happening daily. I mean daily.
Hmm. Yeah,
It is continuing.
correct. Absolutely correct. So you can represent the time continuum in two ways. One is a third person report. Both are in the third person, uh, reportage, even though it is done by the person who has engaged the classes. But here you're giving a date which might confuse people. But the date is inconsequential because before, after, none of those things are there. So it is also a time continuum. That is one kind of time continuum. This is a more in your face time continuum. I first gave you the difficult example because that is what we deal with most of the time in political thought. Okay, so when you do this kind of a thing, then this actually, in the Greek sense of the word, it is an anachronism. It's a continuum. There's no sequence. It's just happening. This also can be an anachronism. Though this use of anachronism is very, very rare. Okay, so in order to actually, this is an anachronism. This is a later derivative. This breaking the time sequence, that is a later development. The original anachronism is this, where you don't acknowledge a time sequence, details of a time sequence. Okay, so this you should now look at it as you should be talking about this kind of an anachronism as what is that word? Non-chronological. If you like, you can also use a slightly easier term, timeless. It's timeless. Would you say Plato's Republic, whenever he wrote it, okay, isn't it timeless? It might have been written during the ancient Greek period. You can still read that. So it's a part of that entire time continuum. It is still available to you. Whereas if you say it's the past is no longer available to you. Are you getting this point, please? Somebody tell me. Or am I confusing you?
Yes, sir.
I'm confusing you.
No, sir.
Hmm? No. Please be honest. I don't want, as a teacher, it's not my duty to confuse. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
It is confusing you?
I
Akshay,
know.
hello.
We are
Who's?
understanding,
Sir,
sir.
Ah,
Fresh,
I
yes, sir.
I taught the sentence which cannot explain in the tenses form. Like every day is a simple present, no sir. So it is a
mm,
uh, con- uh we I mean it is which we can explain here. We either we cannot keep any tense. Is it correct, sir?
yes. Yes, it is correct.
My understanding.
Yeah, it is correct. So please try to understand that if you say, for example, let me give you this thing. If I say, if I compartmentalize time, and if I say, now that I'm taking these classes and recording them and putting them up on YouTube, there is proof. But if I say I took a class yesterday, now is that verifiable?
No.
Yes, sir.
No. So that is the reason why you have to do it this way, as a statement of something that has been done in a time continuum.
So, sir, time continuum and we compartmentalize time. There should be proof.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Okay. So let's get on with it. So understand time as a continuous thing. There are no breaks. Okay, there are no breaks. It's a continuous thing, and therefore we can read Plato's Republic, we can read Aristotle's Politics, we can read Thomas Aquinas' Summa Contra Gentile, we can read Machiavelli, you can read Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. You can read them all. So if you say, but that's all in the past, then it shouldn't be available to you. Let me contrast that with this. Akbar was a good ruler. That is in the past. Akbar was a good ruler, but can you visit the past and find out if he was a good ruler or not?
No.
Yeah. So please, what I'm trying to tell you is knowledge is a time continuum, and it will not be knowledge unless it is passed on either by word of mouth or documented in a written form. That is where you have a time continuum. Okay? You have a time continuum. If something is like the Vedas, for example, for years together, what years, what am I saying? Centuries, millennia. How were they transmitted? They were transmitted by word of mouth. Okay? They were transmitted by word of mouth. People learnt all the Vedas, memorized them. Sanskrit didn't even have a script till the 11th century, when the Devanagari script was finally chosen for it. And that script, by the way, is not a very good depiction of Sanskrit sounds. The sounds that are emitted in Sanskrit, not all of them are possible to convey in Devanagari. A better script is the Telugu script of today. Okay, I'm not a Telugu partisan, or what should I say? I'm not a parochial person, but the number of sounds that the Telugu script can produce is far more than any other language in India. And Indian languages are way, way superior to the West. There's no doubt about that. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is that when it is passed by word of mouth, how many generations have gone through it? So are the Vedas in the past? Especially the word of mouth. Are they in the past? They're not. They're in the present. If a person does not transmit that knowledge to someone else before he dies, then the Vedas would not have been there. Have you got the point I'm trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Before dying, if a person doesn't pass that Veda on to someone else, then it would have disappeared. So it's easier to understand the written thing, but the spoken thing is also equally important. Time is a continuum. That is the principle that you find in Plato. Plato used the whole idea of time as a continuum. And when you say that time is a continuum, it also becomes timeless. The Vedas are timeless. Do you know who wrote the Vedas and who first recited the Vedas? They are timeless. So for Plato, true knowledge is timeless. Now, let's come to the next point. So, if the ideal world or the world of ideas is perfect, and therefore knowledge of knowledge derived, sorry, this is the question. If you are Parmenides, you will be quite happy to say this world that you see is all illusory. Not things are moving, but that's illusory. And therefore, sorry, my throat and mouth are drying up. Very sorry about that. Please excuse me. Okay, so Plato was not satisfied like Parmenides was by stating that the real world is here, the world outside is not the real, it's illusory, in that sense, the actual. So don't concern yourself with that at all. So it's almost like what the sannyasins do in India, that this whole world is mithya, maya, and therefore we concentrate upon the Brahman, and hence we try to become the Brahman after our death through dhyana, which is meditation in English, but that is not the correct word. Dhyana does not mean meditation. If I sit and meditate, why am I so fat? Why do I have to take all the medicines? And are people thinking of me as a glutton? Okay. If are people thinking of me as a glutton, but I don't eat much? That is meditation. You're meditating on that idea. Dhyana is focusing on something which is not you, but focusing on the other, which is the Brahman. And actually, you focus on the other by looking at your insides, which is your particular self, not the bodily attributes of the self, but the mental attributes. If you introspect upon them and you know where you have thought wrongly and where you have thought in a correct manner, then you are supposed to be in dhyana mudra. It's almost like that, what Parmenides says. But Plato is not somebody who's satisfied to say that, that this is the real knowledge and the rest of it is inconsequential. For him, even the world of things is consequential. It has its own consequences. So what does he say? He basically talks about transforming the actual into the real, which means he believes that the real, while it originates in the mind and the interaction between souls happens in the realm of forms, and all true knowledge is ideal knowledge, and that which is indisputable. He's saying all those things. He also says that don't look at the things in the world and try to become knowledgeable. But he's not ruling out the application of the wisdom. Okay? The application Okay, he believes that you can apply the wisdom that you have and you can intervene in the world of objects and make it better. So that is where the police, one second please, sorry,
So, sir,
yeah,
we have to live in the real world. Is
we,
that so? But it is difficult to detach from the actual world, right?
I didn't get that. Could you repeat it again? We have
Actually,
to
I'm
live in
also
the
unable to.
real world.
So, which world is the correct one? The real,
No,
the actual.
in terms of knowledge, the world that we should trust is the world of ideas,
Okay,
which is the real world.
okay,
But our physical existence is in the world of objects,
which is
because
actual.
which is the actual.
Okay,
Okay, now what he believes is that the wisdom that you have gained from the real or from the ideal, that can be implemented in a polis.
okay,
Okay, that is what he says. Implement the wisdom. So it is in that sense that Plato becomes one of the first political thinkers. I don't know, I may be talking on insufficient information, but I do believe that despite the fact that Aristotle is usually considered, as the father of politics. I usually don't like those kind of phrases, father of politics. Then my natural urge is to ask you, well, who's the mother and how many brothers that did this father have, and things like that. So I don't like those words, that kind of idiom. Sorry, not words. Those kind of phrases and idioms. Father of politics. No, not really. And yesterday there was one chap, I must tell you this, who was trying to talk about God only knows what. He was talking about nationalism, and in that he was saying various things, and he said, the father of nationalism is John Locke. And I said, what do you mean John Locke is the father of nationalism? I said, have you even heard of the Peace of Westphalia? And he says, no, that is there, but nationalism is... and then he goes on to ask, what is it that what gives you the greatest happiness? He is trying to teach utilitarianism. And I said, I love eating a lot of food. And he was stunned into silence. He said, this man is a complete and utter fool who's giving me stupid answers. He was shaken and stirred into nervousness. That's a different issue. Anyway, so when we talk about implementation, the timelessness of wisdom is what makes it possible to implement the uh, ideal world sorry, the wisdom of the ideal world in the real world and make the real world a better thing. So when he talks about it, he talks about the polis. He chooses the polis. Uh, he chooses the polis as the medium through which you can implement this wisdom to the world of objects or the actual world. And since he does that, since he chooses the polis, that is the institution he has chosen. So you can most definitely say Plato is the first. He's the first political philosopher. The fact that the book is called The Republic, a republic again is a political idea. Okay. Though greater credit is due as far as Aristotle is concerned, yes, he has a greater claim over being considered as a proper political thinker, but he's not the first. Plato is the first. I don't know if I have left anyone out. I have done a fairly deep study into the Greek period. I have gone through not just political thinkers. I have gone through Greek literature. I've gone through, various other people, and that is basically the uh, thing that tells me that in any of the various good books that are available, there is no mention of any person before Plato who talked about the polis like this. And if there is, then I would stand corrected. But to my knowledge, and I'm a finite human being, so my knowledge is also going to be finite. And hence, I will say Plato is the first political philosopher. If Thales is the first philosopher, Plato is the first political philosopher, is what I believe. If somebody knows something to the contrary, please tell me. Yes, Akshay, you want to say something?
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Yes, sir.
What are the credentials that are needed to be a philosopher?
To be a philosopher, there's only one credential: your ability to explain the world. Logos, as the Greeks called it. Explanation, various words it means. Philos is the word, logos is explanation. So a philosopher is one who is trying to understand the world. And you must understand that as far as the Greeks are concerned, since you brought this up, the Greeks did not distinguish between science and philosophy. They use both those terms interchangeably. They use both. Yes, Rachna.
Sir, is all philosophers are rational and truth? Is it true?
All
Philosophers
philosophers,
means
all philosophers are rational. Yes.
absolutely. Then how Pythagoras told the souls and everything?
No,
It's
no. So,
uh,
what is wrong with that?
how can a
No,
how can a
does
present world believe that?
why can't you? If
We cannot
somebody
see souls,
dies,
no, sir.
somebody dies. Okay. If you are a Hindu, then you follow the principles of the Garuda Purana. The Garuda Purana is about the journey of the soul after somebody dies. Okay, so all those 12 days or 13 days of ceremonies that people perform is nothing but acknowledging the soul and saying that the soul needs to go. On the 10th day, there is a practice called Dharmodaka or Dharmodakam in Sanskrit, which is you give a part of your punya to the soul so that it can ascend and become one with the Brahman. That is what it is. So it is there. Will a Muslim bury somebody without a janaza ka namaz? They have to take the body to a mosque, have a namaz there, which is a different kind of namaz, and only then can the body be buried. Same thing with the Christians. Christians hold a service. Again, the body is taken into the church, and after that they are buried. So see, these are all timeless rituals again. Hmm?
Sir, one more doubt. If all philosophers are true and rational, means how they are criticized by others?
They are not
Like
true. They are not always right. They are not always right, but they are thinking rationally. Even what you think are superstitions have a rational basis. Someday I'll explain that to you. Remind me that I have to explain to you
okay,
that
okay,
even superstitions have a rational basis. Now, all
okay,
philosophers are rational. They are making their own attempts to understand the world and explain it, but they need not necessarily be right. They may be only partially right, they may be fully right, or they may be completely wrong. Okay, so that's how it is. So you can't say they are all right. No, just
okay,
because they are rational, it doesn't mean that they are right. Rationality also has its limitations, which is what Immanuel Kant, I'll stop with this. Immanuel Kant actually gave a wonderful definition, or rather, he made a great statement. He said, where reason ends, faith begins. Okay? Where reason ends, reason is rationality. Where it ends, faith begins.
No, that's
So,
very striking.
yes, it is. That's
Okay.
why I said it's a great phrase. It's a great thing he said. So, there are limits to reason also. It's not unlimited. It's not unlimited. It's not something that explains everything. Okay, thank you very much. I've
Yes,
delayed
sir.
you. Yeah, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Sir, I have a request.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
can we do this like last 10-15 minutes daily? Can we have discussions like what you have
Yeah,
taught,
all
asking doubts?
you need to do is do what Pindi Rachna did.
Yeah.
Put the hand up and we'll have discussions.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. I love having discussions. If you say that, I'll be most pleased. I'll be
Yes, sir.
happy. I'll be very, very happy. I don't like this monologue going.
Right. Let's do that, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Righto.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Righto.
sir.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.